Welcome to your TOEFL listening training with 5 big tips and tricks that we've learned over 10 years helping you here at TOEFL Talk with NoteFull episode number 11. So for those of you who've been following this series, a quick announcement. So we're transitioning in these next 9 to 12 episodes from what we've been doing, which has been answering the questions that you've been asking, building your vocabulary for the TOEFL, and partnering to success with like a lesson within all of that to be a little bit more structured. We found that this might help you a little bit more, where for the next 9 to 12, we're going to experiment with focusing on tips and tricks for every section so that you can really maximize your current level for a top score. Critical training, these very important techniques that you need to master that require hours and hours of work to improve your score, and personal support. So you still get answers to your questions. You still feel like through YouTube you're getting that guidance that's really helping you individually get to your dream score. So hope that makes sense and you keep following. You can hit subscribe to make sure you don't miss those. So I'm Joseph from NoteFull. Very excited to be with you and begin our tips and tricks. So for the TOEFL listening, and this covers a little bit of everything, there's a big desire from most students like you to know, how much do I need to study to get my dream score? So you want to think 20 hours or 100 hours, 20 or 100, because what you can realize is that right now you have your current English level, and you should be proud of that because you've worked hard for it. So the TOEFL is an exam that you have to prepare for. So in order for you to maximize your score, to learn how the exam is structured, to learn the tips and tricks to improve, it takes about 20 hours for the average student. So you can think for the TOEFL listening or the TOEFL overall, you want to invest about 20 hours to master the exam so you can perform well. You know what to expect, you know how to manage, little situations that occur in the exam, and you do well. Once you've studied 20 hours for the TOEFL in general or any exam, you want to consider the score that you're getting a more accurate sense of your level. So you can imagine that tips and tricks beyond that aren't really going to help you improve your score. They're just going to make sure that as you improve your academic English level for the TOEFL, you're going to take that and improve your score with it. So what that means is 20 hours and you get a score, you take a practice test. You can imagine now if I want to improve even more, I should think in terms of 100 hours. And that's kind of a lot for people because 100 hours. And that's the part where we can help you, especially those of you working for big improvements, which is what NoteFull is really focused on, because that way you can eliminate so much stress and frustration by thinking that every 5 to 10 hours you should improve, because that gets painful very fast. So when you think in terms of 100 hours, then what you can do is you can say to yourself, I want to take the TOEFL, get the best score I can, and move on. So you can think 20 hours for the TOEFL overall, or if I really want to maximize my results, 20 hours per section. When you have to hit a certain score and you need, 5, 10, 15 more points, or you need 2, 4 points on a really tough section, you want to think in terms of 100 hours. Then it makes sense that you can really improve and organize your studies. And so you want to have your schedule, and you want to outline it for every 20 hours or 100 hours. So you actually have, your calendar, and you work on it in that sense. So hope that makes sense. That's the first tip, the right mindset for success. Now a trick, right? For the TOEFL listening, what do I do when I feel lost on a question, right? You're taking the TOEFL, you've done a lecture, questions 1, 2, number 3, I'm lost, I'm confused. The only thing we can do is feel comfortable that we want to improve our chances of guessing accurately, because you have 6 questions per lecture, 5 questions per conversation, and standard, you get 2 conversations and 3 lectures that are scored. So that's a total of about 28 questions. So you want to think strategically and increase your odds of guessing correctly when you're confused. So the best way to do that is to think, what's the most important topic after the previous question's content? So what that means is the questions are often, like 9 times out of 10, in order. So question number 4 is information after question number 3. So when you take notes, and notes we consider a critical skill, so that's going to be in a critical training episode, not this one. So if you want help with notes, know that we're going to provide that, but it'll be in a future episode, probably the next one. So you can think about that next Thursday or maybe in 2 weeks, because we do a video every Thursday, every other Thursday. So what you want to see is you look at your notes and you realize, okay, the previous question was on this part of my notes. And so all I want to do is after that, what's the next important thing they were talking about? So you always have a sense of the units. So let's say they're talking about the first cause of the Industrial Revolution, and then that was question number 2. Then they talk about one of the consequences of the Industrial Revolution. So when you're lost on a question, you can realize, well, I'm lost, but I know strategically, the TOEFL is going to ask me about the next big topic. So I can turn it into kind of true and false, so I can see which of these answer choices best connects with that next piece of information that I can consider true. And so this is going to increase your chances of success. You only have on average about 35 to 38 seconds to answer each question. So this prevents you from wasting time on it, from having something in your head to do in that situation so that you don't get, stressed out, because it's okay to feel lost on a question, but you just want to breathe, kind of focus on that next major piece of information in your notes, and then choose an answer that reflects that best. So that's going to help you overall. And remember, if that happens 3 or 4 times and you stay calm and apply this, and you get 1 or 2 questions right, you can expect another point. And for a lot of you where you have minimum requirements, sometimes 1 point is the difference between our being done with the TOEFL forever and needing another 3 to 6 weeks of training, needing to invest more in the exam. So make sure that you take that seriously. Every little bit helps to point you in the right direction. Hope that makes sense. Now the next thing, a tip. What do I do when I'm lost in the listening? Okay, so I'm lost on a question, I know what to do. What about when I'm lost on the listening? So the first thing is stay calm, right? Because when you're lost, you tend to start talking to yourself in your head, which takes you away from the lecture, which means being confused maybe for 10 seconds of some confusing information turns into a minute and a half. And then you feel a little bit maybe sad, disappointed. It's harder to stay focused. So the first thing to do in that situation is breathe. And almost expect it. It's going to happen. It happens to me, happens to everybody. It's a stressful exam. So you want to remember, okay, breathe, and then think to yourself like you're fishing, or you're waiting for something. You're waiting to catch when you're starting to understand again, which means you stop taking notes. Because if you keep taking notes when you're confused, that's the biggest way to keep distracting yourself. Because now you have a story in your head that's likely, what are they saying? I don't know what that means. What is that? And at the same time you're taking notes, so you're going to struggle for longer than you need to. So in that moment, breathe, stop taking notes. You can even close your eyes to concentrate more on what you're hearing, and actually wait until you catch the sense, okay, I get what they're talking about. And this actually connects with the previous trick because you also want to realize that a lecture is probably between 4 to 5.5 minutes. Conversations around 2.5 to maybe 3.5 minutes. So they're going to ask you 6 questions on the lecture, right? So oftentimes they talk about maybe 5 or 7 pieces of information per lecture. So often they can't ask you about everything in the lecture. Like the lecture will be maybe, let's say, 4.5 minutes, and it'll talk about maybe 6 important points. But one question is always the main idea. So 5 questions for maybe 5 points, or 5 questions when you have 6 points in the lecture, sometimes you get lucky and that thing that you were confused by isn't even connected with the question. So we don't want that to turn into something that hurts us for the rest of the lecture. Does that make sense? So just to recap that, biggest tip, expect that. Happens to me, happens to everybody. So the way to succeed is how quickly can you reconnect with the lecture, with the conversation. So you can close your eyes, stop taking notes, control your breath, and just think, okay, let me catch that next sentence. And sometimes it can be stressful because it can take a few sentences to catch, but you can have a sense that if you're not following the lecture, you need to be concentrating on it 100% because you can't really answer a question accurately when you don't understand. And so that's a tough one, but make sure that you do that. So the key thing here is to use that strategy for you, and then you're on track to success. So now let's talk about the next trick. What do I do when I'm not improving? So this is an experience that's unfortunate. You know, sometimes you're studying every week, you're taking a practice listening, and you're in a frustrating place. Maybe you feel like you want to give up, you don't want to study anymore because you didn't do so well. So I'm here to share with you that that's unfortunately part of the journey because our brain, our skills don't improve perfectly. Like 1 hour of study equals 0.1% improvement, 0.2% improvement. Usually improvement happens after a certain amount of time. That's back to the first tip where you want to think in terms of 20 to 100 hours because then your brain organizes everything you're studying and boom, you're another level better. So when you're not improving, the biggest trick is go back to old material. So for example, you just did a TOEFL listening, you didn't do as well as you expected. Most of the time, it's because you're overwhelming yourself with information on, okay, I got to do this and I got to take notes this way and I'm studying this vocabulary and I've watched all these videos. So your brain needs some time to bring it all together. So you can think in that moment, okay, I'm going to organize 20 hours or 100 hours of study, and then after that, I'm going to test myself again. And the trick is I'm going to go back to old listenings, a listening that I've already done. And it's going to do several things for you. This is really important. The first thing is you're going to start to feel a bit more confident because since you've reviewed it, when you're reviewing something you understand, you're going to get the boost of confidence you need. I get it. I realize why I got this question wrong originally, and I now know how to get that question correct. The next thing is, it's not about knowing the answer. You know, you might think, if I review something, but I know the answer, what value does it have for me? What the value it has is when you review it, you remind yourself of the technique, of the process of taking notes, of the process of answering, of the way information is presented to you, because you want to make sure that you realize outside of building vocabulary, it really is an improvement in your English level, is a different technique that becomes more practiced and stronger. For example, many times when you speak or write, you'll notice if you make a grammatical error, and if you look at what you wrote or you hear what you said, you can catch it. Oh, I made a mistake. That means in order to improve, you don't need learning, you need practice. You need practice doing what you know. So by going to an old reading, you boost your confidence, you study more effectively, and you start to experience results, right? Hope that helped. Now the next tip. Okay, this is kind of connected because we work with a lot of students. I hope this is really connecting with you and your experience. What do I do when I'm freaking out, right? Freaking out is normal. It happens to all of us. That's when we're taking the listening. I'm lost, I'm stressed, I'm distracted. Or I'm studying and I'm stressed, I'm not improving. My deadline is approaching in 6 weeks. I have way too much to study. The first thing is, I think in just talking about it, it feels a little bit more calming because you're not alone. Your experience is understandable. So the biggest tip when you're freaking out is to remind yourself, I'm not alone. Because sometimes we tell ourselves the story, it's just me. Everyone's improving but me. Everyone's passing but me. And that is very painful, distracts you from your studies. So when you're freaking out, no, everybody does, including me. So it's like, I'm not alone, I'm human. The next thing is, close your eyes, take a deep breath. Actually take a breath to kind of feel like you're lowering your heart rate and just tell yourself, I can do it. I'm learning what works. I can do it. Be patient. Because the only thing you can do is basically in that moment, respect that it's a tough journey, you don't feel good, but you want to keep it from exploding into not studying for a few weeks. Getting rid of the exam. Feeling angry, why do I have to take this exam? And maybe even giving up on your goal. You can do it. You're learning what works. Stay strong. Remind yourself of that. And one more tip, go back to the 20 to 100 hours because it might be that what's happening is you're expecting results faster than your brain can produce them, any human brain. So the 20 hours to 100 hours is a really meaningful amount of time that you can trust is how much time we need to improve to a certain level. Like when you study 100 hours, you can expect a 4-point improvement. So I hope this helped. That covers our tips and tricks, right? And just to kind of help you for the TOEFL listening. And again, because we found it was important to not only give you critical training where we're just doing practice, listening to recordings, answering questions, but kind of talking about the overall experience, just seeing some of your comments. So to review, let's go ahead now and review a different way. So the first thing, do you remember the 20 versus 100? Right? To make sure you're on a path of success, think in terms of 20 hours versus 100 hours. Every 20 hours is how much time you can get yourself ready for the exam at your current level. Plan your study time around that. 100 hours is when now you can expect an improved level. The average student will improve 4+ points, 4 to be safe, with 100 hours. And if after 100 hours or 20 hours you notice, I'm not improving, that's a great opportunity to recognize I need to study differently. Some method has to change. And we'll talk about how you can reach out to us to get that personal support so you're on track. The second, what's important after the previous question? Remember, when you're lost on a question, just think, okay, in my notes, the last question, what was that about? Okay, so this question I'm lost on must be the next information. So what do I know about that? What do I remember about that? Okay, let me choose an answer that connects with that the best. And that is going to increase your odds of getting more questions correct that are really tricky for you. Next, take fewer notes. So remember, that's when we feel lost on the lecture. Remember, close your eyes, don't take any notes, and Wait until you catch the next point, because remember, just because you miss one part doesn't mean you can't understand the next part when they start to change the topic, which will help you to not turn a little moment into a long experience of missing a lot of important questions. The next thing, review, 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 which if you remember is, what do I do when I'm not improving? Like, I'm not seeing week after week my score improving. Double check the 20 versus 100. We might be expecting results a bit faster than is average to improve. And go to an old TOEFL listening. And that works for the reading, speaking, and writing. Because with old material, you get to review and strengthen your technique. Then the last one. I use it all the time. I can't tell you, when you succeed, when we have success stories, we do interviews, right? They can be an hour to 2 hours. So they're really in depth over every TOEFL section. And so many success stories want to encourage you that you can do it and to make sure to follow that last point. The exam is stressful. So you want to control your focus and as much as you can your energy. So sometimes you have to just close your eyes, breathe, and give yourself a positive statement so that you kind of stop that voice in your head that might be telling you, I missed this is too difficult, I'm not going to get my score here, why do I have to take this, with, I can do it. Just focus. So that concludes our tips and tricks and our review. So first, you get the thumbs up for your hard work, staying to the end of the video. That's fantastic. And know your success is coming, right? Trust that process. You're on track. So if you found this video helpful, you can give us a thumbs up. Lets us know we're on the right track and how to help you. Also, you can make sure you're connected to us with Facebook if you're not. We do a Facebook Live every month, a free class, usually focused on the speaking, and that's where you can reach out, get more tips and help. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. That way you can make sure not to miss an episode. The next one will be on critical training. We're likely going to focus on note-taking, so it's going to be a great one. And of course, if you need further help and you'd like to partner with us, just click on the link below, and that'll take you to our site, where we describe our courses and how we can partner together to make sure you get your dream score. And to stay connected, please let us know in the comments section. Just 3 quick things. What will you do from now on? Always important because it supports you in reminding yourself, making that commitment, and it lets us know what you found most valuable. What will you do from now on that you learn from this episode to reach your success faster and with a better experience? Number 2, your dream score. Even if you mentioned it before, it's always great to have a reminder to know what you're aiming for so we can make our lessons match your goals a little bit better. And what you need help with most so that we can make sure that our tips and tricks, that our critical training is connected with what you need. And also, just to let you know, we're going to have an episode on critical training and an episode with personal support where we're going to go through your comments in a video. So if you post, you will get some personal feedback. And so with that, we can really use YouTube. So every step of the way, we're together until success. So I hope you found this video helpful. You're on track to success. Stay strong. Until next time, it was a pleasure. Your success is coming. Bye-bye.